in the roadside. Suddenly they will go and they will collapse like that. If you see an unresponsive patient, what we have to do? Okay, unresponsive patient. The most mainly patient presents with the cardiorespiratory arrest, that is cardiac arrest we will tell. What is cardiac arrest means? Cardiac arrest is a sudden stoppage of heart function and the patient will not have any breath. Patient will be pulseless. Okay, how to feel for pulse means we have to locate that windpipe and we have to see the groove here. This is carotid pulse. Okay, it will be present both sides of the windpipe. This is carotid pulse. Okay, how to look for breathing means we have to look for the chest. We have to screen the chest and we can see any breathing is there or not, and we can see okay through the nostril any air is coming or not. Okay, if a patient is suddenly collapsed and is lying on the floor and if we are screening the patient and the patient is having breath and both the pulse is also present means it may be due to other causes, maybe due to low BP, low sugars it can happen. If the patient is not having pulse here, we are not feeling pulse here and is not moving his breath also, then basic life support comes into act. What we will do is the patient suddenly collapse now. Suddenly we should not jump into that. We should look for scene safety. The patient suddenly collapses in the middle of the road, and some patient is in electrocuted or near in some electrical circuit. So we have to take the patient away from that injured area. That traffic, we have to look for traffic and other things. And we have to look for scene safety, and we have to look for responsiveness of the patient. We can ask his names, tell your name if he is responding or not. If he is not responding now, we can tap the shoulder, how he is responding or doing some jerky movements or not. Okay, if he is responding now, no issue. We can look for pulse breathing and we can wait for the ambulance to come and we can get assistance. If he is not responding now, we have to call for other people. We have to shout for help. And the next thing, we have to activate the ambulance. We have to call for emergency medical services. And there is no pulse, no breathing now, we have to start CPR. CPR you would have seen in many movies. That is massage chest compression they will do now, followed by mouth to mouth resuscitation. That is the main thing for cardiopulmonary arrest. We will demonstrate later this class. Okay, usually we will do 30 compression in the lower part of the sternum, lower part of the chest, not here, in between middle of the chest. 30 compression, 30 full compression of 5 cm depth. The sternal depression, this bone is known as sternum. The sternal depression should be 5 cm, followed by 2 breaths, 2 mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, if the patient is unconscious, if he is our relative means we can do. If the patient is neighbor now, we can do. If the patient is unknown now, we can use the kerchief and we can do the mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Okay, 30 compression. While giving mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, we have to look for the chest rise. It is the movement of chest is there or not. We have to do it for 5 cycles. Okay, 30 is to 2. For 1 second, we have to give minimum 2 compression. Then it will come around for 1 minute. It will come around 100 to 120 compression will come. Then we have to do for 5 cycles. 5 cycles of 30 is to 2 will take minimum 2 minutes. After that, in the meantime, we have to shout for help, and the other person has to activate the ambulance and the other people has to come. We have to continue the CPR. After 5 cycles of CPR, we have to look for carotid pulse. If the pulse is present means, okay, we can wait. Okay, if the pulse is not present means, checking pulse should not be more than 10 seconds. We should not wait for more than 10 seconds. Again, we have to continue the CPR. If you are only one person doing all this, no one is there to help us now, we have to take care simultaneously. 30 we have to do, and we have to go to ventilation, 2 breathing we have to give, and then we have to check the pulse, and we have to call governments, everything. If more people are there now, it will be easy for us and easy for the patients, and it will improve the patient survival rate also. If many people are there now, it is very benefit for patient. Okay. When we are continuing the service, this is basic life support. We didn't give any, up to this we didn't give any medicines. We are just using our hand only, we are giving mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. If ambulance people comes now, this is known as automated external defibrillator, AED. Okay, it is the electrical circuit which gives electrical shock to the patient heart, and it will normalize the rhythm. Okay, it will bring back the stopped heart by giving electrical impulse. It is available in most of the railway station, and most of the airport also it will be available. If any people are nearby us now, we will tell them to take care of this. Okay, we should not stop the CPR until, we should not wait for this also. We have to continue the CPR. The patient, if this comes now, we will.
So how to attach this is, you have a power circuit, you attach it here onto the machine. You have two pads like this. So the picture is there here, how to attach. So the left side will be on the lower part of the chest, and the right side will be below your collarbone. This is your collarbone. So it will be like this. So if the picture is there here, you can apply this. Okay? And as soon as you apply, there are only two buttons here, power button and shock button. So 1 and 3. So you press this one button.
Unit opening. Remove clothes from the patient's chest. Place pad exactly as shown in the picture. Press pads firmly to patient's bare chest. Analyzing heart rhythm. Do not touch the patient. Shock advised.
Whenever it says shock advice, you just press this.
Charging. Do not touch the patient.
It will charge and this start blinking.
Press the red flashing
Now we
button.
can press the shock button.
Deliver shock.
But make sure when you are giving the shock, no one is touching the patient.
Shock
The shock.
delivered. It is safe to touch the
Give the
patient.
shock. And
If
then
you begin CPR.
so he tell you to give CPR. So basically this a lay person also can use. You don't have to have a medical expertise to give the shock. The same thing you would have seen in movies and all, where they put pads. It's called defibrillator. Okay, they give the shock. The same thing is given in this. The only thing is that in defibrillator you can adjust the shock, how much you want to give. This gives a universal shock. The same thing is there pediatric pads also. So you attach this for pediatrics. So these are the two things about AED. So you have to not stop the CPR no matter the AED is come or not. You have to continue your CPR. If AED is available, make use of the AED. Okay, and only two places where you have to not give CPR is when the AED tells analyzing rhythm and when the AED tells shock, give the shock. Only 2 times. Otherwise, the CPR continues, and along with that, you if you have an AED, you can use.
How to give CPR is our shoulder joint, elbow joint, and wrist joint should not be flexed. It should be in a straight position. The entire force of action comes from shoulder joint. If you bend the elbow joint, it will break the ribs. Commonly broken ribs are 4 to 6. Okay, we have to give like this. Adequate 5 cm depression should be there. That is known as sternal depression. This only the heel of this palm has to touch this, and other we have to interlace the fingers like this, and you have to give 30, adequate 30, followed by 2 mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. This is 30:2 for one rescuer. For adult it is same. If we are having another one, it is a tedious process. So if we are having more help now, another person also has also come and do 30:2. If we are doing 30 this now, one person has to take care of AED and take care of ventilation, breathing. If we are changing now, we have to do vice versa. For a child means a big child now, okay, 30:2 can be done. If we are having more rescuer now, we have to do 15:2. That is 15 compression followed by 2 mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Okay, child can be done within 1 hand also. If it is a small child now, we can do with 1 hand. And if it is a infant less than 1 year now, we can do with 2 fingers. So this is a cardiopulmonary resuscitation known as CPR, which you would have seen in many movies. And
Any doubts on
Is it 5 centimeters or 5 millimeters?
5 centimeters.
5 centimeters.
5 centimeters. Anterior posterior diameter of the chest should compress by 5 centimeters. Okay, in children it is 4 centimeters.
Yes.
So basically in adults it is two hands interlacing. If it's a smaller child, one hand is also fine. Or if it's a big child, you can always use two hands. In children less than 1 year of age, infants, you use 2 fingers. Okay, it is in the lower half of the chest bone, that is the breastbone what we have, na, where we have to compress. This is for children. And in children, you do 15:2. And if you have 2 rescuers, if you have only single rescuer, you can't do 15:2. It is not going to be possible. So you keep doing 30:2 only. But if you have 2 rescuers, you do 15:2. The idea behind this is children will have most of the cardiac arrest because of respiratory problems. So we are trying to give more breaths frequently. That is the whole thing about children getting 15:2. In adults, there are a lot of things that can cause cardiac arrest. So we go with the standard 30:2. Okay.
We have doubt here. 5 centimeters is about 2 inches.
Yes.
We can go 2 inches down.
Yes, you can. If you give an adequate depth, you have to have. You can actually go this much.
Like this.
You are giving the force through the sternum to the heart. The heart is much behind your sternum and your ribs, so that much of force should go inside. If you give like this, there is no point. It's useless, and it should be always done on a hard surface, so that what the force you are transmitting is, it's the person is getting that force to the heart. The whole thing about CPR is to restart the heart, so your heart will be stopped. So you're trying to give these compressions so that what happens, your heart has the blood, so it will give the blood to the other organs, and from the other organs again, from the blood vessels, it will come back to the heart. That is what the blood circulation happens in our body. So what we basically do is we are doing the heart's work. So we are compressing the chest so that the blood from the heart goes to other organs, and then it will come back through the other veins. Again, we are trying to, if you don't do this, the organs will start dying. So you are trying to do the work of the heart by pressing this. So the blood from the heart should go to other organs, especially your main organs like your brain. If the blood supply doesn't go to the brain, within 5 minutes of oxygen cutoff can cause brain death. So we are trying to rescue other organs. That is why we are trying to do the heart's job, just like how ventilator does when the person is not able to breathe. That's all. And then there are other medications, AED and all, which help in aiding trying to restart the heart. But that is not required for basic life support. For basic life support, all you have to know is how to give compressions and how to use an AED if available. That's all. Any other questions? Yeah, you have this breastbone, no? The center bone, the lower half of the breastbone. So you have here, this part. You can tell your nipple line. You can, okay, down here. So over here, so you have your nipple line, right? So that is your lower half of the chest. Okay, so lower half of the chest, not lower chest. Okay, lower half of the chest.
But this part is very hard, so it doesn't go.
That is why we have to, it's a tedious process. A person cannot do more than 5 minutes of CPR if you are actually doing it right. If you are not doing it right, maybe you can do it for an hour. So that is why we need help. That is why we call help. The first, this thing is after scene safety, you are checking for response obviously and calling for help early, because you will not be able to do CPR if you are actually doing it right for more than 2 to 3 minutes. You will not be able to do. That is why the ideal thing is to exchange with someone after 2 minutes. That is after 5 cycles. 5 cycles of 30:2, you exchange with someone, because you will not be able to do.
Can you explain the cycle once again, like 1,
Yeah,
2, 3, 4?
you do it like this, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like this, 30 times.
Okay.
And then you give 2 breaths. Okay, you cover the mouth of the patient by your mouth and give normal to exhalations. You don't have to take deep breath and give it. Normal to exhalations. So when you're giving, you look at the chest from the corner of your eye and see if the chest is actually moving up and down. So if it's actually moving, then you know that the air that you're giving is actually reaching him. And one more thing that you can do is, so the patient's face will be like this. You try to lift the head so that your windpipe is not compressed. Okay, so you do this. It's called head tilt and chin lift. Okay, so you give this and you give breath, and then you look at the chest and see if the chest is moving up and down. If you do this, what happens is, if it's a fat person, an obese human, so it can always get compressed. Maybe the air that you're giving is not actually reaching the lungs. So basically these things you have to take care of. But if you have a RTA or a road traffic accident or a fall from height or something like that, so in those places, those conditions, you don't meddle with your neck. So what happens is they can have a spinal trauma, a fracture of the spine. So what happens is, if the spine is injured, the person can become paralyzed for life. Okay, if there is a proper dissection of the spine. So that time you don't go to do this head tilt chin. But in other cases, when you're not suspecting any trauma to the neck, you can always do this head tilt chin. In other patients, you can just lift the jaw a little bit, that's all, without moving the neck. Okay, so 30 compressions, 2 breaths. When you're giving breaths, lift the head and the chin. Tilt the head and lift the chin and tilt the head. And then you give again 30:2. This you can continue till the help arrives, that is your emergency service who are trained better in doing this, or if the patient becomes responsive, like he starts responding, then you don't have to give him CPR, or you're too tired, you've done it for a long time and there are no signs of life in the person, then you can stop CPR. It totally depends on you whether you want to continue that time or not. And giving breaths is not mandatory if it is not your relative and you're not comfortable. You can always skip the breaths and give only chest compressions. We are in a pandemic, so no one will be comfortable in giving mouth to mouth. Otherwise also. So if you really want to give, probably you can put a kerchief on that person and try to give breaths. Or if you don't want to give, don't give. You can just do chest compressions. Okay? Any doubts on this?
So you will leave nose open, or you said you can close nose?
You can pinch the nose and give. Okay, if it's a child, you can seal the mouth and the nose together because they have a small surface area. So you can seal the mouth and the nose of the baby with your mouth and give the breath. Anything else?
Other question. Many times we have seen that doctors advise that in an accident scenario, the leg should be raised and the head should be kept down. Probably because they want blood to flow to the brain.
That is, yeah, if the patient is having low BP, that little bit of that maneuver can help. But ideally, for a road traffic accident, you try to keep the patient as still as possible. Okay, because the spine injury is something which cannot be reversed. You try to move. There are certain manuals how to remove the helmet, how to keep the person on a spine board. The basic thing is, unless you rule out certain injuries that is spine related, you don't move the patient much. So as soon as possible, if you require CPR, obviously, because the patient is almost dead, so that time you can give CPR. But even while doing that head thing, you have to not move the neck much. But otherwise, if the patient is conscious, try not to move the spine, especially the neck, the cervical spine, as much as possible. Don't move. Keep the patient still. We'll go to choking next.
Another question. When should we whack the chest?
There's no whacking the chest. That is all in movies. There's only this.
Somebody is not a friend.
I think a lot of movies.
So, this is coming from WhatsApp. Person was in airport and the attack came and they were tapping here and here. Is it true?
No,
Will
that is
that
not
help?
true. You have to tap on the shoulder or tap anywhere on the body. Ideally, the shoulder.
There was a video I
is
seen in
response.
Japan, like they revived person like that.
No, no.
So it's not right.
So CPR is done when you don't feel a pulse. So you feel a pulse. If there is a pulse, don't go to do CPR. See if he's breathing or not. If he's not breathing, just give the breaths. Don't go to give CPR. CPR is given, that is chest compressions is given only when the patient is not having a pulse. The patient is having a pulse, no need of CPR. Okay? And every time after 5 cycles, you check the pulse because you might get the pulse back because of your CPR. So you keep checking. If he is having a pulse, not required to give CPR.
The same pulse should be checked on the.
Yes. Don't ever check the peripheral pulse, your radial pulse and all, because when patient is in cardiac arrest and maybe near arrest, you will not be able to find this pulse. So always go for your central pulse. You can go for a femoral pulse also, which is there in the inner part of the thigh, but this is very easy access. So you can just this is your windpipe. Just next to that, you have two grooves now before this muscle. So you can just keep it, not both sides, you should always put it only on one side. Okay, and feel for not less than 10 seconds. Don't waste your time. If you are unsure, go ahead with CPR.
Next is choking. Whenever someone or child ingests a foreign body, fish bone or chicken bone, they will feel difficulty in breathing, and they will feel continuous cough like that, and they will over like this on position. If they are holding like that, if they are unresponsive after that ingestion, you have to start this BLS, basic life support. You have to start CPR. If they are responsive and they are showing this something they are trying to tell now, you have to encourage them to cough or encourage them to speak. Otherwise, if they are not able to do that cough or speak, now we have to give abdominal thrust. That is known as Aimlich manual. We have to go behind that child or patient, and we have to find the umbilicus. And we have to close the fist of one hand, and other hand has to hold like this. And we have to give compression. That is upward and inward. Okay, like this we have to give compression. We have to look for a foreign body. There is no foreign body, now we can continue this. Okay, and we have to call for help. If it is for pediatric, now it is the same only. We can give abdominal thrust like this. Like this also we can give thrust. This is abdominal thrust, and we have to give 5 back blows. If it is an infant less than 1 year, now we have to give 5 chest blows like this, and followed by 5 back blows. We usually give now if child is drinking anything, something happened to child, it is difficulty, now we will give now same only. We should not obstruct the airway and the nose of the child. Obstruct the mouth and the nose of the child. We should give 5 back blows followed by 5 chest blows. Okay.
Any doubt on this?
Okay, if you are finding that foreign body in the mouse, you can do finger stick method. But if you are not finding that, don't do blindly. It will push further inside.
Basically, that is called Hamlick's maneuver. So you go behind the patient, like you showed, and try to give that thrust so that it comes out. If it's an obese man or a pregnant woman, you will not be able to wrap around their stomach. So that time you can wrap around their chest. The whole this thing is you have to give a backward and upward thrust so that the foreign body comes out. Okay, that is the whole thing. This is only in responsive people. If they are unresponsive, go ahead with BLS, that is CPR, what you are doing, same way. Unresponsive in the sense, for example, they have, that is there since a long time, the foreign body, and the breath is stopped and slowly they are going into cardiac arrest. That is why he's becoming unresponsive. Children, same thing what he showed. You give 5 chest compressions, 5 back blows. 5 chest compressions, 5 back blows. Okay. You don't hold the child like this. You sit down. You keep the child on your thigh with support, and you then keep them on your forearm. Okay, holding them properly. And then you give 5 compressions like this. Okay, and then you hold on the cheek of the baby. Okay, with your forearm like this, supporting the baby. Gently turn the baby, and then you give 5 back blows. So continue this. Every time when you're giving 5 chest compressions, you just open the baby's mouth and see if you can see the foreign body and can remove. Slowly try to remove it out. If it is further down, don't push it. Okay, this is both in responsive infant and responsive adult. If it's a child, what you can do is you can bend down and do the same maneuver which you are standing and doing, because they are shorter in height, so you can do the same thing. If it's an infant, you do this. That is about choking.
Next is heart attack. Heart attack is also known as myocardial infarction. The patient will feel sudden onset of chest pain, which will be radiated to left arm, jaws, radiated to back, associated with difficulty in breathing, sweating. These complaints and all will be there. We have to, if we see any patients having placing arms in the chest and feeling uncomfortable, we have to go to the patient and we have to ask some history, any previous comorbidities are there, any history of similar complaints in the past, and we have to assure the patient, and we have to call for help immediately. And if we are having that aspirin tablet, sorbitated tablet, and all, it will be available easily. Sorbitated tablet we have to keep under the tongue. It is 5 mg. It will reduce the chest pain. And aspirin, and all 325 mg you can give. if he's not having heart attack also, they are giving aspirin and do not cause that much side effect and all. So you can give that aspirin dose also. And the thing is, you have to come to hospital whether to rule out it is cardiac pain, it is a heart attack or anything. We have to do ECG and some other imaging techniques to rule out the heart attack. So if you are feeling this, not don't delay the procedure. Don't delay for the hospital visit. You have to come back at the earlier. Stroke, we can easily remember a stroke by mnemonic FAST. FAST means one patient will have facial deviation. One side of the mouth will deviate, or the other side of the mouth will deviate, associated with the altered arm drift. Arm weakness will be
When
there.
when you ask them to keep your both hands like this, one hand will be moving down like that. They are not able to hold. That's called arm drift. Okay.
And the slurring of speech will be there. And the TS, if all the three features are present, associated with some mild difficulty in vision, double vision, anything is there, na, the TS, you have to time to call for ambulance. You have to shift the patient in ambulance because it will be easy for the patient. And the thing is, if you come within 3 hours of the onset of the symptoms, that is facial deviation, slurring of speech, everything. If we come 3 hours to 4 hours, now we can say we can do the maximum to the patient, and we can neglect the lifelong paralysis, lifelong difficulties to the patient. We are running some procedures. If we come within 4 hours, now we can do, and we can save more neurons than if we come late, 24 hours, one day, more than 1 day.
So basically we have like 2 to 3 treatments. There's some injection that we give. They come in like 3.5 to maximum 4 hours that we can give. If they come within 1 day, that is 24 hours, we have some how we do angioplasty. Same thing, we'll be doing the same kind of treatment for the neurons of the brain. Try to remove the clot. But stroke can be another type, that is hemorrhagic stroke, you've heard. Okay, so it can be a clot, it can be because of hemorrhage. In hemorrhage, there is nothing much that you can do. If it's a clot, you can actually save the patient by these maneuvers. Maybe the weakness or whatever other complaints that he has can be reversed with this treatment. Okay, so both in heart attack and stroke, time is very important, because you can a minute of delay can, so many muscles of the heart or so many neurons of the brain can damage, which is irreversible. So you have to act fast in those cases. Even imbalance when you're standing can also be a sign of stroke. So whenever a patient experiences imbalance, not able to walk in a straight line or feels giddy while walking, that can also be a symptom of a heart attack or a stroke. So never neglect even giddiness. It can be many other non-trivial cases, but always we have to come to the hospital to rule out the emergency cases. Okay?
Next is fire. We are having minor burns. Minor burns means we can apply ice. If the fire is due to some crackers, if it affects the eyes of the child, now you have to give continuous running water, tap water. We can give, it will overcome. And we are in the fire building. Fully fire. Now first we have to safeguard ourselves, and we can easily. Okay, if we are in a position to save other people, now we can easily do. You can remember with the mnemonic race. First, we can rescue the patient. R is for rescue. A is alarm or alert the fire ambulance. Okay. C is confine the fire by closing all the doors, windows. The fire will not spread to other building, everything. E is extinguish. We can use the extinguisher. Or we have to evacuate. If we couldn't control the fire, we have to run. We have to evacuate ourselves. This is a common thing for fire accident.
If you find a person burning, what you can do is you can get some blanket or something and try to stop that further burning. If it's a minor burn and the patient is not burning, not continuous burning is not happening, it's already done, what you can do is don't cover the patient that time. So you can put water, running water, no need of ice cold water, to ease that the further burning process doesn't happen, and come to the hospital as soon as possible. Okay, you can use silver nitrate ointment if you have at home, burnal and all that. If it's a very minor burns, but what happens is the burns will look very minor in the beginning. The blisters and all will start appearing later. So sometimes it can infect. So it's always good if it's a little bit bigger burn, not like your usual, maybe if you've touched a pan or cooker or something, that's okay. But if it's a slightly bigger major burn, you come to the hospital, you take the treatment. Because if it's on the surface, on the face or something, it can leave scars. So we have certain treatments like collagen dressing and all that, which will help minimize the scars as much as possible. So always take help.
Next is asthma. There are any nearby person suffering from these difficulty in breathing and is a known asthmatic now. They will have that Harrow inhaler or Seraflow inhaler or some aspirin nebulizer also they will have. If they are having now, you tell them to use, or you use that puff in the polythene bags and tell them to inhale 3 to 4 times.
If they have the inhaler and they are okay, they will only take it and you find the inhaler for them, they know how to do it. So you have to put it inside your mouth and take 2 to 3 puffs and take a deep breath. If they are slightly drowsy and they are not able to do that by themselves, what you can do is you can press that puff some 4 to 5 times inside the polythene bag and give that polythene bag or a cover or a brown cover or anything. Ask them to take deep breath. So what happens is in asthma, your airway or windpipe, which is dividing into other smaller windpipes, so what happens is that becomes constricted. Okay, so that's when the air doesn't reach the lungs. So that's why they have this squeeze and everything. So what this inhaler, the content of the inhaler does is it helps to open the air so that they can breathe. So that is the whole concept about asthma. Usually it is previous asthmatic, then only you will be able to know. Otherwise you will not be able to know what it is.
One thing I would like to tell, if there is a big fire in the room or building, smoke is coming out. What should we do? We should crawl down and try to keep the person out who is injured, who is burned. And then only it will be easier to rescue, because at the upper portion, lot of oxygen and smoke will be there.
Yeah, it is
So at
also
lower,
not
at lower place there will be less. So that you can go crawl and go and pull the person on his back.
I don't know if there's a technique how to go crawl up or whatever. The main part is rescue. Okay, evacuate, rescue as
But
much
it's
as
possible
possible.
if you go by standing, you won't be, yourself will got okay.
Yeah, that is obviously you have to safeguard yourself before that person. So if you think it is safe, then only you go ahead and rescue.
If anybody
If you
is
think it is-
conscious, revive them. Sit down and then walk.
If they are not in a position, you wait for your fire extinguisher. You let them.
So everywhere fire extinguishers won't be there in the houses and all. So you can't.
If you remain in that place for a longer time, there's something called as carbon monoxide that forms because of this fire. So if you inhale that, that is also going to be loud. You are going to be unresponsive in few seconds. So the main thing is when you have a fire, when you have a smoke, even geyser, when you have geyser on in your thing, if there's some problem in that, that will also leak this carbon monoxide. Sometimes we have got people who have collapsed in the bathroom and they have come mostly because of these geyser issues. So they'll inhale this carbon monoxide. After a point, it will replace your oxygen in your body. So that's why you become unresponsive. So you have to obviously get them to a place, an open place where they can inhale air, and also get them to hospital as much as possible because you need to give 100% oxygen. Otherwise, it will affect your oxygenation in your body. So evacuation is the best thing. If you can save the patient, then only save. Don't risk your life for this thing because you will also get hurt.
One thing I would like to say, suppose somebody is born, and then there is normally feeling of with the people that if you apply water on that, you will get a lot of injury on his skin. So you need not be afraid of applying water. Because if you apply water on his burns, थोड़ा सा फोड़ा आएगा, उससे कुछ नहीं होने वाला है, वो धीरे धीरे शांत हो, क्योंकि if we apply water on that, we don't allow the heat which he has absorbed to go into the inner portion of his skin or flesh. So apply water. If somebody is burned, you can take him to the bathroom, put the shower on and let him be cooled down till he gets himself completely relieved or till some help arises. And you should avoid using any ointment or any oil or any ghee. People think that this will help, but that does not help them. Does not allow the heat to come out, but it allows the heat to penetrate into the flesh. That becomes very dangerous. So do not apply any oil and any other ointment, but use oil, use water to keep cool his body and don't allow the heat, what he has absorbed in his skin and upper flesh, to go down and damage it. If I'm wrong, you can tell me.
Yeah, you can irrigate with water. Water helps to cool down the surface area. So apply water, come to hospital as soon as possible. If it's a minor burn, you can have this silver nitrate ointment in your house. You can use that. That will also help in easing the pain. Okay? It will help in reducing the skin inflammation.
While applying the running water, we have to remove the clothes.
Yes, you have to remove any clothes which is there on your body, which is tight clothes.
Okay.
Try to remove it. If it is stick to the body, then you don't try to remove because the skin will come out. But if you can remove the clothes, try to remove the clothes because the skin will start swelling up. Any tight clothes? Yes.
Icy water.
No, normal running tap water. So we'll go to dog bite next. Sir, we'll discuss that later.
Even if the cloth is on and you are putting water, the cloth will remain cold for more time and that will affect for more time. I don't think it is necessary to remove the cloth.
We should remove the tight compressive dressings, sir. We should remove that tight compressive dressings. If the female is wearing any leggings, it will cause another swelling and cause soft tissue damage to the patient.
Even in the houses and all, while cooking or something, you get little burns, then what? We should not immediately apply any ointment or oil. We should apply water, and because water will evaporate immediately. So you got to put a cotton cloth and keep it changing after some time.
Okay,
So that it will not have ill effect on your skin, and it will be damaged, your skin will be minimized.
we'll go to dog bite.
That is my personal experience, that's what I would like to share.
Whenever a dog bites you, you have to clean the wound properly with the normal water. You can clean and you have to get rid of the dog saliva. And you have to come to the hospital immediately. And you have to put vaccination, rabies. It is known as rabies vaccination. It has to be done in the day of dog bite, that is 0th day. And next doses are 3rd day, 7th day, 14th day, and 28th day. That is the dose of rabies vaccination is 0, 3, 7, 14, and 28. This is for dog bite. You have to come to hospital. Otherwise, you will develop rabies later on. Even unvaccinated dog, any street dog, no, it's not ignored lightly. If it's a snake bite in any forms, and if there is any snake bite, we have to assure the person, okay, they will get panic because 80 to 90% of the snakes are not poisonous. Only some snakes are poisonous, like cobra, crate, viper, and all poisonous. You have to come to the hospital. We will do some whole blood clotting test. We will do, and we will find that that snake is venomous or not, and how much venom is ingested into the body. Based upon the findings, we will find out. If the person is having severe symptoms, swelling, local reaction, we have to give anti-snake venom. So we have to reassure the patient, and we have to immobilize that affected bitten limb by the snake. We should not suck the bitten part, and we should not cut the part. We should not suture the part, it should not do anything. Okay, you should not tie the tourniquet also, tie the compressive bandage also, you should not tie. If the snake is bitten here means if you are compressing with the tight bandage here means the circulation to the lower, circulation to the hand will not go, so it will go to necrosis. Then we have to go to amputate the limb. Okay, we should not tourniquet that also. It will compromise the circulation.
You have seen in movies, I think, a lot of tourniquets you apply, and even till date we see people applying tourniquet and coming to hospital. You try something. So that is going to cause only harm, not good. So the applying a tourniquet is not going to help much, that the venom is not going to spread to the rest of the body. It is anyway going to spread. So what you are doing by doing that is you are cutting off the blood supply to the distal part of the arm. So people have gone into gangrene because of this, and the snake wouldn't have been even poisonous. So they would have lost the arm. So all you can do is immobilize the arm, try to reassure the patient, tell him to take normal breaths, tell him we are going to the hospital, everything is going to be fine, and you immobilize the area. You can try to clean the area if you have some Savlon or something, or just water, you can clean that area. Don't go to touch it or suck it, cut it, nothing. You don't go to do anything. You will come to the hospital at the earliest. That is all you have to do for snake bite. If you consume any poison, okay, you might have encountered this among your relatives, friends, or anyone else. So what happens is poisons can be taken in a lot of ways. You can inhale it, you can ingest it, okay, it can be on your surface of your body, okay, it can go into your eyes, all that. Okay, so you have to get that poison, whatever they have taken, to the hospital, because the treatment depends on what is the content of the poison that you have taken. So don't encourage them to vomit, don't give them something to vomit, salt water and all that people try to give to vomit. Okay, that if the patient is not conscious enough, he might aspirate, that whatever he is trying to vomit can go inside his lungs and it will cause further infection of the lungs and all. You have to come to the hospital as soon as possible. That is the only way for any poison. If you have any chemical burns or anything to the eye, you try to irrigate the eye with a normal water. Okay, and if it's a chemical compound, which is a dry chemical compound, powder, so what we do is, this is in factories, not in our pesticides, and that is okay if you clean it with water. So if you have a factory chemical, if it's a dry chemical, if you put water on top of that without brushing off the chemical, it can lead to other reactions. So factory, they will know what to be done for this compound, so they will know. At your household, if you have taken, normally people take pesticides or Ractol, that your rat paste, that is the common thing which you can see, or phenyl, that is the most common thing, or medicines. So whatever the content they have taken, get it to the hospital at the earliest. If it is required, we will give stomach wash. If some compounds we are not going to give any stomach wash, so we will tell you about what is the treatment to be done. What happens is, in rat poison, they look completely normal. People tell after some 3 to 4 hours or even days, they look completely normal. The liver will start reacting probably in the next 3 to 4 days, depending on how much compound they have taken. So never ignore it. Once the liver is gone, the only treatment is liver transplant. You can't do anything else. So never ignore a rat poison. It is very harmful for the body. Once the liver is gone, they'll start bleeding. So you get to the hospital as early as possible.
Whenever there is a road traffic accident, we will commonly see fracture of the limbs, either bilateral, both upper limb or both lower limb, or unilateral, one limb or lower limb. Then we have to protect that limb we can use pinting methods.
So you can, at your own house, you will have these rulers or sticks, which are stiff. Okay, what you can do is, if for example you have fractured here, okay, it will look like something is deformed. It doesn't look uniform. Okay, so at both ends you can, immobilize that limb. And if you have a cloth or a gauze, you try to keep that limb in that immobilized position. The whole idea behind this is there are a lot of nerves and vessels which travel within this area. So what happens is if there is a sharp edge of the fracture compressing on that, you can probably lose the limb, because if it can cut the artery or something, the distal supply is lost. If it's nerve, then probably your functions will be lost. So that is why we try to immobilize. If it's an arm fracture, you have to always keep it elevated. Okay, so you try to elevate this and try to, you know how to apply a sling, right? So you can apply that sling. If it's a long bone, like a leg or something, what you can do is you can just immobilize the limb in that position and come to the hospital at the earliest. If you have a bleeding wound, okay, or because of any reason, a cut or fracture or anything, all you can do is if you see a foreign body on top of it, like a lot of dust or glass particles or something, if you can remove it, just pick it out and flush it with water. And if it is continuously bleeding, you compress with a clean bandage, a cloth or anything. You compress so that the patient doesn't have excessive bleeding, and you come to hospital at the earliest. If there is a fracture associated with that, you put this splint. Okay. If it's a knife or a sharp object, if it's a stab injury, what we say, don't ever remove the object. Let it be in place, because that will be arresting the bleeding. The moment you remove the object, it is going to bleed profusely. So you always leave the this thing intact and come to the hospital. Doctors will be doing it under certain. We will have certain imaging to see which exactly organ is affected. Depending on that, they will never remove the object. That is all. If you have any other doubts, you can ask. Any other emergencies that you want.
Emergencies for electric shock.
Electric shock, obviously you have to move the patient from the area. Okay, switch off the current supply, whichever. Move the patient from that area. Try not to put water or give water to that patient. And what happens is there will be inner burns. So he needs a plastic surgery review to see what is the thing that is happening. And one more thing is it can interfere with your heart. So a lot of different abnormal rhythms can happen. So it's like a shock thing. What we are giving when there's that kind of shock. So you come to the hospital at the earliest. Patient will have probably sometimes they will have a irregular rhythm that we have to revert, or else for the burns part it will be taken care by plastic surgery. Never go to touch the patient when he's getting electrocuted. Always find out where is the switch and switch it off, and then only go to the patient.
If you are not finding the switch, take the dry wood and beat it.
That they say, but I don't know how helpful is that.
I'm joking.
But obviously, like, save yourself before trying to save someone else.
And if it's an electric burn, don't put water over the patient, use sand instead. Because when you put water, it's a conductor, so you get electrocuted.
After electric current, the patient is unresponsive, you start CPR, that basic life support. And then call for an ambulance, shout for help, everything. For fracture, you can remember this mnemonic price. Okay, already production we told production, and the rest of that injured limb, and by giving ice, compression of the bleeding and the elevation of the limb, like this splinting. I think that's so.
Good, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you
first
have
aid
any doubts,
sometimes
please
seems so simple. Back in those days in school, you remember, you have a cut, you apply antiseptic, and that is the notion that sticks with people, and the other WhatsApp misconceptions that come along.
Movies have also done a
Yeah.
The whole thing is don't panic, especially when it is our close relative. We tend to panic even though we know what to do. So that has to, some person has to remain sane at that point and tell what to do. Because all we do is we shout, we don't do anything, we don't call the ambulance, we don't assess what is happening with the patient. So that is the golden hour of the patient. If you miss that, maybe you will not get the patient done. So that is the time you have to keep calm, do what is required, get to the hospital as early as possible. So we will be having ambulances, new ambulances that is plotted at many places in Electronic City. So you can use our ambulance whenever you want. It is 97384, 97384. Ambulance is free of charge. You can avail it for your own relatives, friends, and we will be happy to help you. Thank you.